Gaelic, Pataudry, the home of Aberdeen Football Club. It roughly translates to, and I can't use the real word, otherwise YouTube will throw us in front of a moving train, Jack Atkins, but it means Brad Pitt Heap.
Oh, very nice.
Otherwise known maybe as a place of manure, a hill of dung, a mountain of feces.
I like the fact you said Brad Pitt. Do you know that his brother is called Doug Pitt?
Doug Pitt?
Yeah, honestly, and he looks more like Zach Braff than Brad Pitt.
And what does he do for a living? Is he a grave digger? I hope so.
I hope so as well. I don't know. I think he's just coasting around being Brad Pitt's brother.
What a nice life to have. Anyway, welcome, believe it or not, to the Hold and Give Football Podcast. I am Ross Tweddell, joined by the Morris Volts, to my Zat Knight, Jack Atkins. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm alright. I'm the Northwest football correspondent now, officially.
Is that what we're going to do if we get big time? Have, like, regional correspondence?
Yeah, why not?
I'll be the northeast one. Jack will be the northeast one. Other Jack will be the northeast one. Owen will be the northwest one with you. Joel will be the northwest one with you.
Yeah,
we've got the northwest and northeast is sorted, which is nice. But if you want to, if you're watching and maybe we get to a certain point, just keep some time free in your diary. We'll come hunting for you. Anyway, we'll get on to the big week of news in the soccer. We've just recorded this Wednesday afternoon. England's squad has been announced for the games against Malta and North Macedonia on June the 16th and June the 19th. And Club England remains. Jargons, I know this is weird for me to be speaking to you about this as a resident of the former People's... Well, the People's Republic of Liverpool, I guess I could call it. Is that what it's known as over there?
Why not? Yeah.
You couldn't give a toss about England, but it seems like a topical thing to talk about. Harry Maguire and Calvin Phillips have kept their places despite never really playing a game of football between them recently.
Yeah, Phillips has really surprised me. I was also surprised to see Jordan Henderson in there because he's looked absolutely knackered all season, but Southgate likes him, wants him in there for the calming presence. But yeah, a couple of weird choices in there.
It's Club England, though. You got to make it feel like it's a blessing and a curse. You got to make it feel like a football club, which means you've got to keep the crap ones there all the time to, for camaraderie, for continuity. But the big news, I guess, in terms of new faces, Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace has got his first senior call-up. Ever since Hodgson went it back to Crystal Palace, he's been absolutely fantastic.
Eze has been, he's been mint, absolutely mint. A very deserved call-up. Seen a lot of people online buzzing for the lad. So yeah, no qualms with that call-up there.
Elsewhere, Lewis Dunk has got his first call-up for the first time in 4 years. He's just a big chopper, isn't he? A big, dirty chopper. I watched Brighton play, or try to play football against Newcastle at St James's Park last week, and Lewis Dunk would take the goal kicks to the goalkeeper. I've never seen this done before in my life. 6-yard box, he'd play it across to Steele, who would then try and play it across again to another centre-half, and it didn't work the entire night. So that's Lewis Dunk. He's got a fantastic header on him. I'm sure he looks lovely at the Amex is called these days, but it feels like a bit of a weird one to do now.
Yeah, I don't know if Southgate's just thinking, got to freshen it up somewhere, because a few people have been calling for his head, haven't they? Like you said, as a resident of the People's Republic of Liverpool, I don't always keep both eyes on England. I'm not one of these want England to lose kind of thing. I'm a club over country man, but from what I've seen of Southgate, he doesn't play the most exciting football, gets results, but what do you think he should do going forward? You're more of the England man than me, yeah?
To be fair, as long as it's working, isn't it? We've got to a final, got to a semi-final in the last two tournaments, so it is working. But it's when it's not going to work, then calls like Phillips, who he started his first game of the season on the third last game of the season for Manchester City. People like Maguire, who haven't really kicked a football in anger in many months. That's when that stuff will feel like it's a bad move, and you should maybe have people who are in form flying, and then I don't know. It's just until the wheels fall off, I feel like it's just going to be, fair enough. It's working so far. Why not? Elsewhere in the squad, Marcus Rashford's included despite his recent little injury troubles, I guess is the right word to use there. Trent's in there, interestingly, even though Gareth clearly does not rate him one bit. Doesn't trust him, does he?
I mean, if I speak, as they famously say. I don't know. I wonder if he does get any game time, if he's going to stick him in the fullback position, or if he is going to try and play him in the role he's had for Liverpool recently, more that kind of midfield role. But
this is Gareth Southgate. There is not a hope in hell he's going to try and make one player play two positions at the same time, because he tried to play Trent in centre midfield once upon a time. I forget who it was against, and it didn't quite work. It was at Wembley, I remember that much, but it didn't quite work. He doesn't trust him as like his defensive qualities at right back. I think if he's playing a three at the back, which he shouldn't be doing, by the way, against North Macedonia, and who was it? Mulder, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Play one at the back, Gareth. What's wrong with you? Come on. If he's going to play, three centre halves, what's wrong with having Trent on there bombing on, just going where he wants to go? You've got three centre halves there on the cover.
I'm just imagining Harry Maguire on his own as the one at the back, just looking absolutely terrified, just like, where's everyone gone?
Everyone's Michael Misford, whatever he used to be called, Malta's greatest ever football. I assume he's still playing. He probably isn't. Coventry forward from back in the day, scored at Old Trafford. Malta's greatest ever export, I tell you. I reckon he'll be running through 1-on-1 and Maguire will try to head him, even though the ball's on the deck. That's what he'll try to do.
You say 1-on-1, he's got to get through a 7-man midfield if that's the case.
I believe in Malta. Ticky-tacky Malta. What else have we got there? Ben White hasn't got back into the squad, surprising. Or is it surprising me? Because apparently everything went kaput at the World Cup. He apparently fell out with Gareth's assistant, Mr. Holland. Is that a surprise for you or not?
Well, no. It's like you said, if it's Club England and he wants to get that sense of harmony and all the lads on tour, if someone's going to be upsetting the apple cart, you want to get them out, don't you?
And there's no place for basically any Chelsea players, which is deservedly so. And Nick Pope, just in case you're wondering, he's got hand surgery, which has been postponed until Newcastle's Champions League qualification was secured. So Sam Johnson, who's been in fine form for Crystal Palace, I guess. He looks a couple of saves on Match of the Day is all I'm going off, really. But he looks like he's a good keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say he's got to be better than Jordan Pickford, but Pickford loves playing for England, doesn't he? So
Pickford for England's like prime. Oh, careful now. Who's a really calm goalkeeper? Edwin van der Sar? I don't know.
I was going to say Oliver Kahn, a man famously not calm at all in the slightest.
He might be the one goalkeeper in football history, apart from Schumacher, who beheaded that Spaniard way back in the day. Oh, Frenchman, sorry, back in the day, in the World Cup. Well, yeah, was it? I forget what it was, in the 80s or the 70s, something like that. And apart from Oliver Kahn, maybe Pickford is the third most angry goalkeeper in the history of football.
Ooh, yeah, that's probably a good shout, actually.
I bet there's more. The comments will be going wild. Elsewhere, Juventus have been docked 10 points following a new hearing into the club's past transfer dealings. They were initially handed a 15-point penalty in January, but Italy's highest sporting court has overturned that decision in April and ordered the case to be re-examined. That's why the 10 points has come in. The ruling was announced on Monday before the team went down 4-1 at Empoli. It drops them down to 7th place in Serie A. They were second, and crucially, they are now, with 2 games remaining, 5 points behind Milan in 4th position. What's your initial reaction to all that bollocks?
They just can't help themselves, can they, Juve? They're like, they are just baddies. And I love Italian football. And I've always had, not a soft spot, but a begrudging respect for Juve. But how many times have they been done for scandals, for cheating? How many times have they had points docked and dropped down to Serie B and fined, etc.? They're never going to stop. They're never going to change.
They're getting a nice average of 1 per decade. Obviously, they had the one in the mid-noughties. This one is to do with the club's past transfer dealing spanning 2 years from 2019, so, technically fits the last decade, to 2021 by the FIGC, who apparently own Liverpool, do they not? No, they don't. Football banter. Juventus were accused of fixing their balance sheets by artificial gains of around 60 million euros from club transfers, charges they were found guilty of by FIGC's appeals court in January, and they denied any wrongdoing, but it's not worked for them. Don't know why I'm laughing so much.
Just Fabio Capello somewhere just sweating for no reason.
I'm going to have to sign Boomsong again for the 2nd division. It's not that bad, Juventus fans, if you're out there. I doubt there's any Juventus fans watching this anyway, but it's a weird one to see. And from, well, unless you're a Juventus fan, quite jovial, sad news to now we get to proper sad news. It's the whole Vinicius Junior scenario. If you missed it over the weekend, Vinicius was dismissed following a VAR check for pushing Valencia's Hugo Duro to the floor. That's because the VAR. Oh, I put my teeth in, Ross. The VAR footage showed the on-field referee did not include the part where Duro grabbed the Brazilian around the neck before he did his stuff, and that was an astonishing thing to watch on Twitter. That's where I saw it on Saturday or Sunday night, wherever it was. Amazing to see that go down.
Yeah, it was one of those, like you said, again, viewing it over Twitter, it kind of just seemed to snowball because there was the initial Twitter, obviously you're in a Twitter bubble, but there's that initial bubble talking about it, that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you're seeing opinion pieces, and there's been deserved absolute uproar about it.
Yeah, so it's obviously sparked from racism from the Valencia fans toward Vinicius Junior. He reacted, which well, you can't blame. We're seeing it grow more and more. And I think it's the right thing for them to do. I think walking off the pitch and doing stuff like that, not having to go back, but just taking action rather than just, you go back to the famous example of England versus Spain in the mid-noughties when Ashley Cole and players like that were getting it. Nothing really happened. Gary Neville spoke of his regret of that entire situation. So the more things we see where action's being taken, the better, because it's still not going far enough, is it?
No, definitely not. I mean, we even saw it from members of the press afterwards when they were trying to, well, not justify it, but say the Valencia fans, you can't tar him over the same brush. They weren't, what were they saying? They're saying he's an imbecile or something like that in Spanish. Yeah. And Ancelotti saw his arse, rightfully, and it's the fallout from it's been, I think this is going to rumble on for quite a while.
Yeah, Vinicius issued a statement where he said it, in brackets, the racism was not the first time, not the second time, not the third. Racism is normal in La Liga. The competition thinks it's normal. So does the federation, and the opponents encourage it. I am so sorry. In Brazil, Spain is known as a country of racists. Vinicius then went to hint on that he might, because of the abuse, leave Spanish football when he said, I will go all the way against the racists, even if far from here. And you can't blame him, can you?
No, definitely not. And it's problems we see time and time again, especially more with continental Europe. Obviously, there's plenty of examples in Spain, Italy as well, have had, even against their own players. Remember when Balotelli was at Inter, and Inter fans were giving him absolute abuse. Obviously, England, it's not as bad as it seems to be elsewhere. I don't know if that's rose-tinted glasses, but obviously we are two white men talking about this.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's the steps in the right direction, but then things like, we'll come on to it in a bit, La Liga's response to it just takes it back a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time. Valencia have been sanctioned with a partial stadium closure for 5 matches following the abuse, which is the stand where the 3 fans who have been accused of doing what they were doing, where they were seated. Spanish police have detained 3 people in connection with the abuse directed at the Brazilian on Sunday. Valencia has also been fined €45,000, which is £39,000. I know Valencia have got the financial struggles and whatnot, but that is nowhere near enough, you would say.
Yeah.
Vinicius' red card, by the way, has been rescinded from the match, meaning he will not have to serve a suspension. And Valencia have responded to the entire stadium closure, the fine, as disproportionate, unjust, and unprecedented, which is wrong.
Yeah, it's one of those. You've got to take Vinicius' side. You've got to. It's hard to find the words, really. It's just. Like I said, the way Valencia, they're just like, oh, what about, we don't deserve this. It's like, well, if it's your fans, you can't just ban the fans, because who's to say that more fans might not do it next time, or that there might be a rot already in the fan base itself. Like we said, £39,000, €45,000, it's nothing really in football.
Nah. And we got to Javier Tebas a little bit later on in the podcast in a new segment that we like to call Twat of the Week. Elsewhere in the news from the last week, Manchester City have won the Premier League, just in case you've missed it. Arsenal bottled it away at Nottingham Forest, a game which I had predicted 3-0 to the Arsenal, because I'd quite obviously not realised what a fortress the City ground has become, and I expected Arsenal to bounce back a lot better than they did against an open team like Forest after that win. That defeat at home to Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, City, isn't it? It's boring now.
That's your fault, that, you Scousers.
I'm crestfallen. I remember before a ball was kicked this season, I said, if it's not Liverpool winning it, I want anyone but City, because I don't want it to become Bundesliga. And if it wasn't for us winning it, 2019-2020 season, it would have been, 6 on the bounce for City?
6 on the bounce, yeah.
I'm frightened. I am frightened. Because they're just going to get better. They're going to get even better. Arsenal, I think, overachieved this season, but still, like I said, they led the season for most of the season. How many times can I say the word season in one sentence? But they
as many as you like.
They led the pack for most of the season, and then, like you said, bottled it. There's no other word for it. Me and my friends, we were talking about it, because when it looked like Arsenal were, cantering towards victory, we were just kind of like, oh, we don't want them to have it easy at the first time. We've lost it twice by a point. They need that heartbreak to spare them on next time. So a little bit of me is kind of glad that they farted it, but
no, it's the spurring on seems to be the theme of my thoughts. It's like you can't expect Liverpool to be as bad next season, Chelsea to be as bad next season. I don't think Chelsea will get top 4 next year, but they'll be a lot closer than they were this time around, surely. So hopefully that gap, while it's just Arsenal and City up there by themselves basically, and then the rest of us fighting for 3rd, 4th and 5th and something like that. Hopefully that gap between everybody will be a bit closer next year.
I hope so. Yeah, it's been an odd season. It's been an odd season because obviously, like I said, from a Liverpool perspective, I'm just like, we've dropped the ball in a campaign where City have, until recently had seemingly dropped the ball, but they've peaked at the right time. Like I said, Newcastle have had a fantastic season. Chelsea have, I can't get over how bad they've been this year.
They're below Fulham now. They're going at less than, I think they're going around about a point a game now, Chelsea, which is sensational.
I think I heard something, was it, that they were en route to finish in the bottom half of the table for the first time since, 90, 98?
Must
97?
be.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but back when they were a cup team and nothing else. Up the Vialli.
Joker!
Rest in peace as well. I forgot about that. He died, didn't he? Anyway, is this the best Manchester City team we've seen? I think that's the big discussion. People are saying either Pep's 2019, that 18-19 sort of team, or this 2023 team. I think it just wipes the floor with 18-19 personally.
Yeah, it's frightening because you look at them at the weekend against Chelsea, basically playing the kids, and they swarmed them in the first 10 minutes. They were all over them. It's an embarrassment of riches, and like we said, they're going to improve. I reckon they'll probably sell Calvin Phillips. I think
Laporte is going as well from centre half, so they've got that to replace as well.
I heard rumours, I think somewhere linking Gundogan with a move away, maybe to Arsenal.
Barcelona as well, I've seen linked, because he's not signed a new deal. He's going to go on a free, which I find astonishing from a Manchester City point of view, that Prime Zidane, basically, for the past 2 months of the season, is going to be let to go on a free. And
your club captain as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, cheat codes, not cheat, as in game cheat codes.
Well, potentially cheat codes if those 115 violations come to fruition.
Yeah, and people wanted to call Liverpool's title win asterisk FC. Yeah, let's have a conversation about that. But they're fantastic City, regardless of whatever means they've come to it. The amount of talent they have at their disposal. And Pep Guardiola, as much as I like to, call him a bald fraud out of anger, he's a fantastic manager. And as I was saying a second ago, for most of this year, be like, City, they've had one of their, one of the seasons where they're just not looking up to pace, up to the boil. And what is it now? 12 on the bounce or something?
Yeah. It's basically
something ridiculous.
Diaz has come back in the team and they just basically haven't lost ever since.
Yeah, it's frightening. That's the only word for it. It's frightening.
The other big issue resolved in the Premier League over the weekend, or Monday night I should say, was Newcastle securing a top 4 position. This might be an interesting discussion considering I'm a Newcastle fan. That man there's a Liverpool fan. A fantastic 0-0 draw at home to Leicester, where both teams stopped playing with about 3 or 4 minutes to go. I'm sure people will be looking at that in a very, very scrutinous way. I don't know if they will do, but it just felt a bit weird that they both stopped playing. Newcastle got the point they needed. Leicester got a good point that they set up the game to get, with the 5 at the back and whatnot. Obviously, we've got to mention before that game took place, Liverpool drawing 1-1 at home to Aston Villa, a score I predicted right. So stick that up your arseholes. I thought that Emery would make it like a European away day in a semi-final of a cup or something like that at Anfield. But the big contentious thing was the VAR calls, and I think I'll just let you rant about it if you want.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't a good refereeing performance by any means, was it? The ref was the 4th official who Jurgen Klopp berated recently. And so obviously the first match that Jurgen Klopp has a touchline ban, who's the ref? And I was like, oh, okay, you can pick someone else.
So what comes around actually does go around?
Yeah, we've been calling it the Tierney tax, the Paul Tierney tax after recently. I mean, Cody Gakpo gets kung fu kicked in the chest. Literally takes off his shirt to show these big 3 not gash marks, big scratches. Alisson's go metal saying he's just been kicked in the chest. And but we've given a yellow card now. An offside that was definitely not offside. There was calls for a Jordan Henderson penalty, which could have gone either way. It was a shocking refereeing display. And we appealed to the referees. And of course, they just said, Well, no, nothing wrong with our decisions. It's like, well, of course you're going to say that.
Well, they had Howard Webb on Sky Sports recently showing the ones they did get right without showing the ones they didn't get right. And it's nice to see VAR going not the way of Liverpool after, what happened at Anfield with Isak and whatnot at the start of the season. It all evens itself out, doesn't it, Jack Atkins?
I mean, every fan of every club likes to think that there's a conspiracy against them.
Newcastle's dropped at least 15 points this season because of VAR. Liverpool away, Palace at home, Wolves away. There's lots of them.
I mean, I've got a mate on Twitter who all season he's a Newcastle fan. He's just been saying, they don't want us breaking into the top four. They want to keep the elite safe. And I was like, yeah, they did a great job of that with you qualifying for the Champions League and being fantastic.
And I guess I'll give you a couple of minutes if you want to gush over the four lads who are leaving. I watched that going away bit where they all got the guard of honour and saw King Kenny at the end and had a good little laugh with him. I guess Bobby Firmino is the most heart-wrenching one, is he?
Yeah, it's emotional. He's been absolutely superb since we signed him. And the fact that he got that goal at the end should have been a winning goal. But, it's still a consolation goal. We're going to miss him. Luckily, it looks like we're grooming Gakpo to take over that role. So if he keeps going on the way that he's already started, we should be okay. James Milner, again, been a hell of a servant. He's the last of a dying breed of that kind of utility man. Play anywhere you want him to on the field.
Your Morris Volters of the world, as I said at the top of the podcast.
Well, exactly, yeah. Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's been very unlucky with injuries, because when he first came to us, he was an important part of that midfield. The goals against City in the Champions League, a similar one he scored in the Premier League as well, and then just not the same player after too many injuries. Naby Keita as well. We hoped he'd be the second coming of Gerrard. We thought he was going to be this absolute destroyer. When he played, he looked fantastic, but we'd only guarantee 60 minutes a season, so it was nice to see, because obviously Chamberlain and Keita, there's a portion, it's the saying I hate the most on Twitter, because footy banter on Twitter is terrible, when people are just like, get out of my club. It's like, shut up. He's not been a great player, but it's not like he's there, sabotaging the place and, pissing in the sink and stuff like that.
I know he cost a fair bit, didn't he? I think it was like 50, 60 million quid, wasn't it, for Naby Keita, something like that? And he's obviously been nowhere near that sort of standard, but he has had a couple of standout moments for Liverpool. I mean, as a Newcastle fan, I think it was when you were going for the Liga, was it? Or maybe challenging City one of those years, you got a goal away at St James's Park. Yeah, that's the only one I know. I'm sure you've got more examples off the top of your head.
Well, he scored a few important goals in Europe. Whenever he played, I always thought that him and Salah had a nice understanding, but again, the amount of time they had on the pitch together was, next to none. But I don't know what he does next. I think either a return to Germany or maybe a slower paced league like Italy, because I don't know if it was because Klopp trains and plays in a very aggressive style. It's very taxing. They always say the Premier League's very taxing as well. So whether he just needs a calmer change of pace. Because there's a player in there. There's a hell of a player in there, but just made out of crisps.
What flavour?
Ooh, a nice, let's say, I don't know, prawn cocktail.
A prawn cocktail? Oh, very fancy. Yeah. How delightful. My favourite flavour. Anyway, you say Gakpo could be the one to replace, or is looking like being the one to replace Firmino. To me, who's watched him not too many times before the World Cup, a few times during the World Cup, and a few times since the World Cup, it seems like running and getting him behind is his strong suit. How's he going to adapt to being more back to goal than not?
There's been a few times with mid-game management where we've had 4 forwards on and he's not dropped more. He's not quite the false 9, not quite an attacking midfielder, but he's just been a little bit deeper. I do think he is going to be our first. I think he's going to be starting next season, basically. I think Núñez is going to be our bench player. He's not 1 and 2 anymore, Ross. He's not 1 and 2 anymore.
The defence is gone.
I like him. He's chaos. But he just, when we signed Gakpo, because obviously we were crying out for midfielders, a lot of us were like, why have we signed him? I hope it's not just a good World Cup. I didn't want him to be the next Karl Boborski. He's been...
El Hadji Diouf?
Oh, let's not mention him. We could have had Nicholas Anelka. We could have kept him, but we thought, no, let's sign El Hadji. But he's just been superb. He's just been... There's no better way of saying it than, or no clearer way of saying it than that he just gets it straight away. He understands the task, because one of the things with Núñez is he's not dropping back as much. He hasn't learned English yet, and at the moment he's raw talent, but he needs to work on his game. With Gakpo, it's like, right, we've eased him in already. Half a season, he's looking fantastic. Give him a full pre-season and next season, and who knows? The sky's the limit for him. He really is.
And speaking of the sky being the limit, Bukayo Saka signed a new contract at Arsenal, apparently a new 4-year deal, keeping him there until 2027 after his previous deal was supposed to be coming up at the end of next season. He's a good boy.
He's a very likeable lad, isn't he?
He is.
Good player, but he just seems like a nice guy as well. So, yeah, they've got a good young squad, Arsenal, apart from, 45-year-old Granit Xhaka. But
apparently he's going to Leverkusen, I read this morning, Xhaka.
He's a strange player, Xhaka, but that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, Saka, he's had a great season. What can we say? He's nearly had a Premier League winners medal. Back in Europe, I think next season, now he's got this contract, now he's committed his future. It'll be interesting to see how Arsenal evolve and if he can improve on his numbers.
Yeah, big time. And then finally, the and finally section of the news has Mikel Arteta. And this is an astonishing story because Mikel Arteta brought in a chocolate Labrador at the Arsenal training ground, a dog called Win. To boost spirits, Arteta explained, I feel like we are a family and we need a dog to represent that family. I carefully chose the dog. And in my opinion, it's the perfect representative of who we are right now. Her name is Win. We all love winning, and Win needs a lot of love. So the love for Win, that was basically the feeling. That quote there belongs at the start of Mike Bassett, England manager. The reaction from the players and the staff has been incredible. She is one of us. She is going to be on this journey with us together. Win needs accountability from us because we have to look after her as well, her emotions and what she needs. Now, this brings up an interesting discussion because it's not the first time Mikel Arteta... I mean, first and foremost, if I was a player for Arsenal and I was greeted by a chocolate Labrador every day at work, I'd be tickety-boo with that. I'd be tickle pink. It'd be a fantastic way to start the day. But is Mikel Arteta... He's either got, in my opinion, an astonishing low opinion of what his Arsenal players can understand verbally with all these visual cues and these physical cues like a bloody chocolate Labrador, or he's an actual genius, because you go back through the annals of Arsenal, Arteta's time at Arsenal, he was the manager who played You'll Never Walk Alone over the speakers while they were training to replicate the atmosphere at Anfield, even though, no crowd noise.
Work.
No, it didn't work.
But still.
Do you know what the score was in the meeting after that game? I can't remember, me.
No, I can't even remember what I have for breakfast. I just remember there was a big thing about it, saying, "Oh, be interesting," and then I think we tonked them. Don't hold me to that, but yeah, pretty sure we won.
He used a light bulb to stress the importance of collections. Or connections, I guess that should say. I don't know why it says collections. He also revealed that he's used the Spanish did use a miniature olive tree to demonstrate the need to nurture and grow together. Again, why he needs a physical prop to explain these things, I don't know. Does he think his players are idiots? Look at this tree. Trees grow and the branches stay on the tree, therefore they stay together. Look, you wouldn't have understood that if I didn't use this little tree.
It's like when you'd have a school assembly in primary school and like one of the teachers would take it and tell a parable. And they'd be like, and of course, that's why, I don't know, there's no I in team, but there is an I in meat pie, that kind of thing. You can imagine him saying that and having a meat pie with him. But...
I hope he's got little rhymes for certain things. Like when I was learning the days of the week in French, lundi, mardi, mercredi, jeudi, vendredi, samedi, et dimanche, France, France, France. I hope he's got stuff like that going on. Like for press and tactics and stuff like that. They're all sitting in the dressing room together. We go together forwards, then we... I don't know. You know what I mean?
The way I always remembered mercredi in French is when I was learning it, my dad said, just think of it like this. Imagine your mate's coming to pick you up in the car and you just ask, is the merc ready? And I'm just like, I was like, Dad, I'm 11 years old. None of my friends have a Mercedes.
Might have had toy ones, you never know. So there we go.
You never know.
That was the big news, I think, from the week in the soccer. We now move on to the next highlight. This is the pilot. We will have fancy jingles and whatnot ready for next time, hopefully. I swear. It's the highlight of the week. Now, I'll bring something to the table which I found astonishing waking up on Monday morning. Obviously, Graham Souness has left Sky Sports just before the end of the season there. Nobody knew what he was doing. I think it was Sally Nugent from BBC Breakfast put a teaser tweet out saying, oh, we don't know what Graham Souness is going to do next. Find out tomorrow morning on BBC Breakfast. And little did we know that we were going to find out that Graham Souness has actually got a soul, and feelings that aren't Paul Pogba must die. This is an amazing thing to watch. He plans to swim the channel, does Graham Souness, for a charity called Deborah, which supports people living with... I've not even practiced this before doing this. I should have practiced this. Do you want to give it a go, Jarkins? Because I'll just make a tit of myself.
Epidemolysis bullosa. I'm going with that. Yeah.
It's just, if you just have to go and watch the interview he did on BBC Breakfast. He did interviews elsewhere. He's got this little girl with him that I should have got the name of, but it's he starts crying every time he sees her. Basically, it's a wonderful thing to see. It's a very fitting cause to support with doing something like swimming the channel when you're 101 years old.
I mean, you'll never hear much bad mouthing of Graham Souness out my mouth. He made some mistakes as Liverpool manager, of course. Gave an interview with, the paper that we don't mention. But yeah, he's all right, Graham Souness. He's spoken about homophobia in the sport as well, and saying that he went to, was it Pride and Brighton, and got educated and had a great time with his family. Although he is, when you think of who's an old school midfielder, and you think of Graham Souness with a moustache kicking people in the neck. But this is fantastic. I mean, even if I trained for a year at my age, in my mid-30s, I'd be like, oh, swim in the channel, that's a bit rough. But old Graham Souness, he must be mid-60s now.
If not more, yeah. I mean, just my perspective, apart from Sky Sports, is just taking Sir Bobby Robson's team from Champions League to 14th in the league in less than a season. So he's come a long way since those days. Obviously, if you want to learn more, we'll stick the description to Deborah, the charity Deborah, in the description down below. It's a wonderful thing to watch him go through it. Like, he goes and visits this little lass at her home and whatnot, has a little chat with her on the couch. You'll be having a tear in the eye, let me tell you. But Jarkins, what's your highlight of the week?
I mean, I'm going to be biased this week. It was Bobby Firmino's farewell at Liverpool. I was at a wedding on Friday, and the best man is, he goes to every home game, and he was like, I've been drinking all day today. I'm emotional from this wedding, but I tell you what, tomorrow when Firmino says bye, I'm going to be in floods of tears. And just seeing the whole cop singing his name and him there with a tear in his eye. There was a mural. We love a mural around here.
Speaking about that mural, do you see the little badge that was in the window right next to it?
No.
Everton's catchphrase, Nil Saints, whatever it is.
Nil Satis Nizzy Optimum.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah. Possibly a few too many murals, but, they're great tributes to great players, but that's all we were talking about before the match. Obviously, we were thinking, no one I know, even going into the Villa match, thought we had a hope in hell of getting the Champions League. We've played terrible all season. We don't deserve it. If we get it, it would not be down to us playing well, be to... hopefully United now absolutely spunking it, but we were just thinking, gonna miss Bobby, gonna miss him.
Are they going to spunk it? Because Man United have got, they're at home to Chelsea on Thursday, then at home to Fulham on Sunday. You wouldn't think so, would you?
I think they'll take 4 points. I think they'll beat Chelsea, and I think they'll draw with Fulham.
Ooh, score draw too, Desmond 2-2.
Why not? Yeah, let's have a Desmond.
There'll be goals in that game. Obviously, Liverpool have Southampton away on Sunday. It's a long way to travel down. I've just realised I've picked that Souness thing over Newcastle getting to the Champions League. That's how much the little videos touch you. Honest to God, it's amazing. It supersedes football. I don't think we need to say that when it comes to sort of charities like Deborah and the work they're doing. When you see the visuals of who they're helping, you shouldn't have to say it, but I am going to say it. It supersedes football. It's a stupid thing to say, but I'm saying it anyway.
You've made me look like an arsehole now for picking Bobby Firmino, because you were at St James's the other night, weren't you?
I was at St James's the other night. It was fantastic. Well, the game was very frustrating. We should have won, but we didn't win, and we got a 0-0. Nick Pope makes that save at the end, where James Maddison did this wonderful set piece routine playing tiki-taka around our wall players and whatnot, and then Nick Pope makes that save. Yeah, we get away with it, and Champions League qualification secured. I think we deserve it. I know there's been a lot made about time waste and all that stuff. Well, it's time wasted when Newcastle do it, but when the other teams do it, it's wonderful game management. It's dark arts when Newcastle do it, or it's just what you have to do when other teams do it. Depends who's doing the dark art, I should say. But just the job Eddie Howe's done, where we were, November 2021 when he took over, no wins, to where we are now. It's and the players he's took along. It's not all about the money. Like, I think we spent the same as Leeds, about 160 million or something like that. And look where Leeds are compared to where we are in the same period of time. I think I saw that in the press the other day. I hope I'm right there. But you look at Joe Linton and there's also Joe Willock, who I reckon might have been in with a shout with an England call-up. He didn't get injured against the game before Leicester. Who was it against? I can't remember now. Your mind's gone blank. I can't remember where for breakfast like you. Anyway, he did his hamstring in. You look at like Dan Burn, unfashionable signing. He's taken him to, he's played most games at left back this year. When I think, in my opinion, he's clearly a centre back. He's not really a left back. He can't get forward. He's not very what am I trying to say here? His touch isn't the best, I should say. Something like that. And just the players he's brought on, coupled with the likes of Isak coming in and Bruno, it's been a wonderful time to be a Newcastle fan. There's always that little bit in the back of the mind of where the money's coming from, don't get me wrong, but what am I meant to do as a fan? What am I meant to do?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what kind of players you attract this season.
It's a worrying it's a nice time because, I'm not used to Champions League. I'd rather be at that end of the league compared to where we've been largely under the Mike Ashley era. But the way Eddie Howe plays is my big worry. I might do a video on this ahead of next season, because keeping that up, Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, if we want to get runs in that as well, we're going to need literally 2 players for every position, and I don't know if we'll get that quality in the space of one summer.
But he's been my manager of the season, Eddie Howe. I think the job he's done has been fantastic. And like you said, you've spent, but you've not gone hell for leather. Yeah, it's a lot of spunk in this podcast, but yeah, the job he's done is fantastic. I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be hunting around top 4, if not higher, next season. Because again, before a ball was kicked, when I was talking to yourself and our good pal Aidan Gibbons, Aidan was hoping for top half of the table and a good cup run.
I think that was because Eddie Howe said the Champions League wasn't the aim, and he said the aim was to be better than last season. I think that's all Newcastle fans wanted, was just to see that little bit of progression. He didn't think the bottom was going to be as good as he is, because he came to Newcastle just after we fought our way out of a relegation fight into a sort of mid-table obscurity place. But if we don't get Champions League next year, I'd be worried about keeping him and Bruno in particular, because they are that good. I mean, Fabian Schär's another guy who's come on leaps and bounds. He couldn't get a game under Steve Bruce. Now he's part of one of the better centre-half partnerships in the league. There's loads of players who've just come on leaps and bounds, and then there's obviously the quality added as well. It's just... yeah, he has been astonishing. It's that gap year he had, looking at Simeone and whatnot. Because that was the thing when he took over, was everyone was like, oh, Bournemouth couldn't defend for Toffee. Newcastle are the same under Bruce. They're going to be even worse under Eddie Howe, because he plays even more open football than... well, Steve Bruce didn't play any brand of football, but Eddie Howe plays an open brand of football. Newcastle's going to concede 100 goals, going to have to score 101 to at least stay up. So yeah, it's been amazing to see his development as well, from what he was at Bournemouth to now, because it felt like at Bournemouth he didn't have what he has now at Newcastle. Yeah,
I mean, you're saying about players who've come on leaps and bounds. Joe Linton, you were all calling for his head this time last year, and now he's an absolute destroyer. Miguel Almiron, what?
He's dropped off a bit, to be fair, but that purple patch before the World Cup, it was astonishing.
Yeah, considering he scored like a handful of goals in a couple of seasons, to just banging them in week after week after week.
I need to do a video on the story of Joe Linton, because the way he became Patrick Vieira is one of the best stories in football. Kieran Clark gets a red card at home to Norwich, right, when it looks like we're doomed at this point. It was like the turn of the year, early 2022, and he gets a red card very early on in a home game against Norwich, who were also down there. And then Joe Linton has to drop back and then just destroys Norwich, and then ever since then he's destroyed everybody else. It's fantastic.
we had a similar thing, not quite to the same leaps and bounds, but with Lucas, because when we had obviously young long-haired Lucas, and he was more of an attacking midfielder and he's a bit crap and we hated him, drop him deep, we were gutted when he left. He turned it round. It's just... and again with Wijnaldum, when we bought him from Newcastle, he was a winger, and we dropped him more into a kind of central playmaker, and like, you saw him tear Barcelona apart from the bench. Sometimes it's weird that someone can be at such a high level of the game and at such a point in their career, and then someone just goes, oh, go in that position instead. They go, oh yeah, this makes so much more sense now.
It's amazing with Joe Linton as well, because you watch interviews like players picking their like dream five-a-sides or whatever, and all like most players you would see would pick Joe Linton because of how he was in training, and then he'd play up front under Steve Bruce, and it looked like he never kicked a ball in his life because he's just not a centre forward. We signed him as I think he played sort of like attacking midfield left, if you want to use Football Manager speak, like that sort of role for Hoffenheim, and we spent 40 million quid on this guy, and he looked awful, and then he's become. I'm not taking the piss when I say this. Prime Patrick Vieira. He's all over the place. He's astonishing. A snippet at 40 million. Let me tell you. But that's it. I can't believe I'm saying these things that people are going to watch. But anyway, it's all true. We move on now to a segment. Believe me, honestly, we move on now to a segment called Twat of the Week. Now, normally, myself and Jack Atkins would come with two different options, which we might put to a vote or a poll or something like that on the socials, but on YouTube. But we've both come with the same person this week. Jack Atkins, I'll let you take it away.
Well, originally I was going to say Bernardo Silva because I'm just going to say him every week because I can't stand Bernardo Silva and I don't like seeing him happy. Week? He's happy, isn't he? I don't like seeing that.
I'll forever have a soft spot for Bernardo Silva because of his dog. His dog's called John because he likes John Stones a lot. I'm sure it's a little French bulldog he's got, and it's called John just because he likes John Stones a lot.
That doesn't matter. He's still a twat in my eyes. But
Bernardo from Portugal has a little dog called John. That's a fact.
I think
they celebrate.
But this week, only one twat of the week. It's La Liga president Javier Tebas. Mm-hmm. Like we were saying before with the Vinicius incident that happened, just the way it's been handled is terrible. Because obviously, you mentioned before, Vinicius put out a statement on Twitter saying how La Liga belongs to the racists. And Tebas, rather than, supporting him in private or, putting out a statement about how they're going to take a zero tolerance approach to racism, he tweeted this instead. And this has been translated by Google Translate. He's put, since those who should not explain to you what it is and what it can do at La Liga in cases of racism, we have tried to explain it to you, but you've not shown up for either of the two agreed dates that you requested yourself. Before criticising and insulting La Liga, it is necessary that you inform yourself properly at Vinny Junior. Do not let yourself be manipulated and make sure you fully understand each other's competencies and the work we've been doing together. The brass neck on this man.
Job's worth.
Yeah. Utterly tone deaf. Not the time. Even if that's what he thinks, these are frustrations he should be saying in private to members of his staff. Publicly, he needs to be saying there is no room in the sport for this. We need to stamp this out. We need to get this out and support this player who is a generational talent. He's fantastic. I can't stand Real Madrid. I've said about Juventus before being baddies. Real Madrid are up there for me. And
why is that, Jack? Can you run me through maybe the past 5 years of football finals potentially, why you'd hate Real Madrid?
I mean, and every time they do spank Liverpool, Vinicius Junior is usually the starring role. But it was just the fact as well that Real Madrid recently were like, oh, we've got no money, but we might buy Mbappé and Bellingham this summer. It's like, all right, lads, calm down. That's me getting off the point anyway. I can't even remember where I was going then. But yeah, Vinicius Junior, the La Liga is a better watch for him being in there. He's a fantastic player. Regardless of whether he's a star player or whether he's a bench warmer for, whoever, for Granada, they need to be supporting the players. They need to be saying, right, here's what we can do. Here's what we're going to do. Don't worry, we'll support you. But instead he's trying to be all sanctimonious, saying, well, if you educate yourself, we're here to help you, but you didn't turn up. The lad's just been racially abused and physically assaulted on the pitch. No, shove it up your ass.
He's the victim here. He's trying to, Tebas is trying to make himself the victim of this situation somehow, and it's not the response he should have had. I don't know what else we say. We could have come with a second option to maybe see who is the biggest twat of the week, but nobody's getting past Javier Tebas this week, are they?
I had a whole diatribe written about again the PGMOL, the Premier League. I can't even remember what it means, but the referees basically. But as soon as that happened and I saw Tebas's tweet, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, there's no way he's actually put that out. So
people like him is why we're still in the mess we are with that sort of stuff. There needs to be more people who do more decisive stuff when it comes to issues like that. Because as you said, it doesn't matter who it is, but Vinicius, with the profile he has and the team he plays for, there's a real chance to sort of set a stall with at the top of the very tippy top of the game and having that same effect trickle down through the rest of it. But he went completely the opposite way, and it's just the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to backtrack a lot and, fall over himself to smooth this over. But like I said before, this is gonna rumble on. This is definitely going to rumble on. We've
got Tebas there as twat of the week, deservedly so. We might as well mention what you were going to mention. Just so we can chat about it. Why not? What are we going to bring to the table on the old referees front?
It's just the fact that, obviously, from a Liverpool perspective, we got some terrible decisions at the weekend. I've been saying for years now, obviously referees deserve support, they deserve respect, they should be able to perform their duties and feel safe. Obviously Jurgen Klopp, he's a bit of a knobhead towards refs. He's our knobhead, but he's still a knobhead. But just the stuff with at the end of each match, when they have, when they interview both managers and they interview man of the match, I just like them to have a word with the fourth official and just to say some big calls there. How do you see this, this, and this? And for him to say, letter of the law is this, blah, 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 blah. The fact you can't criticise a ref without getting fined out the arse, etc. The too protected, which sounds a bit daft.
No, it doesn't.
Obviously, the stuff with Tierney and Klopp. And they said, yep, Tierney said nothing wrong. Release the audio then. We're not going to do that. We're going to stand him down, but he's done nothing wrong. There's no transparency. We've seen it in other sports that they mic up the refs. Rugby, famously. I think cricket as well.
Yeah.
Fine, works brilliantly. But there's just... It's gone too far. I think we've got a breed of arrogant refs in the Premier League as well. Especially in the last decade or so as the profile of the game's gotten bigger. Like, I had no love lost for Howard Webb. Not due to, people saying, oh, he's a Man U ref, blah, 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 blah. He thought he was the star of the show. Mike Dean did as well. It's like, no one's here to see the footballers. They're here to see me call the action. It's like, no, you should be anonymous. If I'm noticing you, you're doing your job terribly.
Yeah.
And until this generation, this crop of referees is phased out and they can bring in a new crop that have been taught from the ground up to work with VAR, etc., it's just going to be a complete mess.
I thought that segment they did on Sky Sports with Howard Webb was quite refreshing. Apart from the fact they only showed examples where VAR got it right. We'll get that out of the way because that's what they did. But hearing, I don't know why they can't play the audio that's going on while they're making the decisions in the stadium, since the place the decision's being made is miles away from any stadium in the Premier League, so they're not going to be affected by the crowd, even if they get the sound from the TV companies anyway. I assume in the little VA in Stanley Park, so that could have affected calls already, which it obviously hasn't. You would think. So why can't they then just play make it transparent, as you say, play the stuff they're saying in the stadium, so at least the fans, first and foremost, have something to go off while they're making these calls that can sometimes take up to 5 minutes. We've seen even this season. But also just so they're not left scratching their heads. But as you say, the making referees come out after a game and saying, this is why I made that call, is something that we've been calling for at least 20 years now, haven't we? And it just never happens.
But like I said, even if it is the fourth official, so you are still affording that layer of protection around the ref himself. If you've just got someone from the team saying this, 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 and this, like you said, rather than going to Howard Webb, who's going to toe the company line and, protect his charges, something needs to change. Because, again, like I was saying, that offside decision against Liverpool the other day, the only people seemingly who've called it offside are the current referees. Retired referees are just like, I could see why they've called it that, but it's wrong. And players are just saying, that's not offside. Has it potentially cost us a Champions League place? Probably not. It was out of our hands, but who knows?
Yeah, who does know? But if for example, the referee from that game, if he came out after the game and said, here's why we gave that call, I'm sorry, it's human error. I know VAR is supposed to eliminate human error, it's supposed to be clear and obvious, all that bollocks that we've heard from them before. If he came out and said, hold my hands up, it's a mistake, would that help at all as a fan who watched that game?
It would, yeah. I'd still be annoyed by it because you're just like, there's incompetencies, but it's like when a player has a bad game or a manager has a bad, tactical decision or whatever, and they come out and hold their hands up afterwards. Even if you're annoyed with it, you're just like, well, at least they've accepted it, and hopefully they can work on it going forward. We know nothing about the refs. We don't know anything apart from the letter of the law.
It's like the Wizard of Oz, but ever so slightly different.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Right, it's time to debut the best segment in the history of football podcasts. It's called What Happened to That Wonder Kid, hosted by Jack Atkins. Every single time we do it, it's his segment. I'm happy to go with whatever you want to do with this one, Jack. We've not talked about this. I can't wait to see who you've rolled up on the old podcast today.
So, seeing as this is, the first episode of the podcast, the pilot, the debut, call it what you want, we'll go with an easy one, and someone who's been in the news this week. It's Pato. Alexander Pato.
Chelsea great.
Chelsea great Alexander Pato. Those, when he was at Milan, I've got the stats up here. Early years at AC Milan, 150 appearances, 63 goals. Serie A title, a Supercoppa Italia Cup. Had the world at his feet at age just 21. He was still playing behind Inzaghi and Zlatan as well. So, came out of nowhere, set the league on fire, and then after that, whenever you think of him, you're just like, oh, injuries ruined his career. So season 2010-2011, he missed 15 games for Milan, and the 2011-2012 season, he missed 36. He stayed at Milan until he was 23, took the number 9 shirt from Inzaghi, and then in 2013, aged just 23, sold to Corinthians for €15 million, which at the time I was like, that's a backward step.
Yeah.
Injuries or not, that's ridiculous. I mean, the 12-13 season he'd already missed 15 games from Milan, but whatever. It just seemed like, what are they doing? They're shooting themselves in the foot. But then he didn't set the world on fire at Corinthians. He was criticised routinely for spending chances. Arsenal bid just £6 million to sign him at age 23. And Corinthians said, oh no, we'd rather have 10 million quid for him.
What year was that, sorry, when Arsenal bid for him?
2013, apparently.
2013, so that would have been like when Giroud was there. And
yeah. So this is a 23, 24-year-old Pato here. Corinthians loaned him to Sao Paulo in 2014, then Chelsea in 2016. And I remember when Chelsea got him, I was like, right. I was like, it's Pato. Doesn't matter what's happened. It's Pato. He'll regain his form. It'll be, even though it's for Chelsea, it'll be a joy to see him in the league. He wouldn't have scored a pen on his debut and made one more appearance, and that was it. 2016, he was sold to Villarreal for €3 million at 26, when he was meant to be in his prime. €3 million.
He's got a good agent to get to Villarreal. I can't remember how high up the table Villarreal were at that point, but historically, they're more towards the top than not, you would say, in Spain and La Liga. Yeah,
exactly. But even then at Villarreal, 24 appearances, 6 goals. You're like, not bad. Yeah. And you talk about how good his agent is. He was sold to, I'm going to pronounce this terribly, Tianjin Quanjian, the Chinese club.
Right.
I probably butchered that. For €18 million in January 2017. Nothing fishy going on there.
He got his weekly wage there by any chance? Because I reckon it might have been, well, it would have been 6 figures, but how high into the 6 figures are we talking?
Yeah, I haven't got it to hand, but he's probably paid out the arse. But 60 appearances, 36 goals.
Whoa!
Yeah. Went back to Sao Paulo on a free in March 2019. Left in August 2020 after 35 appearances and 9 goals. Went to Orlando City in 2021. Got injured in his debut and underwent surgery. Then came back, 32 appearances and 4 goals. And this week, they reckon he's back to Sao Paulo. He's 33, and they reckon he's going to be on $8,000 a week at Sao Paulo.
I mean, does that matter when you've been to China for a few years?
Well, exactly. I saw some quotes from him, and he was like, they were giving him potential Ballon d'Ors when he was still 20, weren't they? You remember it as well as I will. At Milan, he was just a dribbling machine. He was incredible. We all did think, as a generational talent, he's going to be, if he continues at this pace, he's going to be a shoo-in for greatest of a generation. But when I actually looked at his injury record, there was those 2 seasons at Milan and this last one at Orlando City where he was, out pretty much the whole season. Apart from that, like we say in there. Villarreal, 24 appearances in one season, 60 appearances in 2 years in China, 35 appearances in one season in Sao Paulo. He got his injury worries out the way, but he just never regained that form.
I was just looking at his height there, because to me, I always remember thinking sort of like the late noughties when he was at his pomp for Milan.
Yeah.
This is the next Messi, but then I see he's 5'9", so he's way too tall for that, so we'll go for the next Aguero. It felt like that, even though Aguero wasn't even that old then either. It just felt like, yeah, he's that sort of similar, just clinical forward man who has, the tiki-takas about him and that sort of stuff.
He did always look really squat. I'm not sure if that's because he was stood near Zlatan, who's like 7 foot tall, and
potentially, yeah.
Inzaghi, who's always looked quite lanky because he's quite lean. But the drop off from him, I never thought it would go as bad for that. He's probably made a handsome living regardless. He still played football for a job and lived the dream, and he seemingly has no regrets. He's got his family and I think he's got his religion as well. He's Brazilian and probably does. But he's the ultimate one for our generation. When you say what could have been, is Pato.
He's up there for sure.
That Chelsea move, though, it was... God, I didn't think it would go that badly. 2 appearances.
Yeah, it just... I do remember when he signed for Chelsea, because it was that year when nothing went right for Chelsea, wasn't it? Where they got rid of Mourinho.
Yeah.
So he wasn't in the best Chelsea team ever, but even still, you think like... But then again, that might... Let's blame Chelsea for this, right? Because you look at all the centre-forwards they sign. Falcao. João Felix this season. Pato.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more. Look, Remy, Demba Ba. Never goes right for them at Chelsea, so there we go. There's the story of Pato, who, kids of our age, you're a little bit older, just ever so slightly older than me. I'm in my 30s now. He was one of the ones to watch, wasn't he, back in the day?
Oh, definitely. But like I said, I thought it'd ease us in for this first one. But
so there we go.
That's what happened to that wonder kid.
That's what happened to that wonder kid. Jingle incoming. So we'll end this football podcast with the big question, which is just here for SEO reasons. Let's just get it out there. Why the hell not? Should Vinicius Junior, after everything that's gone on, everything we've gone through during today's podcast, should he leave La Liga for pastures new? It's something he inferred that he could do to get away, in his words, from the racists. Is it something he should do, or should he potentially stay in La Liga and just fight the good fight, I guess is the way to put it, maybe? Is that the right way to put it? I don't know.
I mean, whatever he wants, he can do whatever he wants to do, really. He's that good, he's that young, he's that prolific, he's already won everything at Real Madrid 10 times over. If he stays at Madrid, I'm sure, with this big rebuild that's coming, he'll be part of, another trophy-laden side for years to come. But if he does leave, does he end up in the Toon? Does he go to Man City? There's only a handful of teams that I could really afford to splash the cash on him, couldn't he? The prospect of him and Haaland at City.
That's disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. I reckon Jack Grealish might be a bit struggling for a game if that happens. He's only 22 years of age. He's already got 21 caps for Brazil. I'm just reading here. Already closing in 150 league games for Real Madrid at the age of 22. 34 goals from the wing is very good indeed. I think after the comments of the top dog at La Liga, I think he's got to go. I think he's just got to say, stick 2 fingers up. I know that with Madrid and Barcelona, it might not affect La Liga's finances all too much because of everything else that Real Madrid and Barcelona have. But for him, and to send a message to La Liga as a league, just saying this is not on, I think if he just said to Madrid, this is what happened, this is what's being said by the person who handles our league basically, and ensures our safety is the right way to put it, but brings in the sanctions for stuff that happens to us as people. He's a person at the end of the day, not just a football, he's a person. I think he just goes 2 fingers, I'll see you later. And then Madrid have got that issue of trying to find a buyer, as you say. It's only one of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 teams in the world, or China. Someone from China, you never know.
Get Pato on the phone, he'll put in a good word.
I'm joking about that, by the way, just in case the comments go wild.
I'd like to... I'd like to imagine a world where if he walks, then other players from other teams walk and say, we've had enough of this. But, money talks at the end of the day, and I can imagine La Liga will be, after this latest gaffe, will be bending over themselves backwards to make things right to him and apologise to him and Madrid. And if they don't, then Christ, definitely get out of there if they're not willing to backtrack on what's happened. But I don't know. He's in the fortunate position that whatever he wants to do, he can do. Like we were saying before, that it doesn't matter if he's, you know, a starter for Real Madrid or, you know, a youth player down the bottom of the league, that he should be treated as a human being regardless of the colour of his skin. But in this situation, it does help that he is who he is, because if he wants out of there, no problem. He can play anywhere.
I mean, obviously it doesn't help. Us two can't relate to anything on that scale. You know, sat here as two white lads and whatever. But if you felt like if something happened to us in that way, and then we watched the sanctions that got brought in that could and should have been a lot more severe than they were, you'd be thinking, what's it going to take for something like monumental to happen? Because that's what it needs to happen. Something big. From the, you know, the what am I trying to say here? The logistical side of football, I guess. The admin side of football. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm sat here as a Liverpool fan who, once upon a time, we had Luis Suarez at the club, and the way we handled the Patrice Evra situation was, like, at the time, us as fans, we didn't want to believe that one of our heroes was, you know, an arsehole, basically. And we were just like, you know, some of us bought into some of the stuff. It's like, oh no, he wasn't saying that. It's been lost in translation, blah, blah, blah. And then the stuff with the T-shirts, famously, was a terrible move. And then, you know, we all had to hold our hands up at the end of the day and say, no, he's just a bit of a tit, isn't he, Luis Suarez? So you want to believe the best in people, and you want to hope that this kind of thing won't happen again. But like Vinicius has said, this is the umpteenth time he's been abused, and there's problems with racism, you know, every league you can think of. So I don't know, they need to start properly stamping it out, tackling this problem at the root. Yeah, and it's not going to be. I reckon it's got to be a flat thing. Like, if you've got, whether it be 3 fans like it is with Valencia, or even more that we've seen in you know, I think Hungary springs to mind. The recent-ish England game that was played in Hungary, there was issues there. No matter how many people are involved, I think a flat fine, a flat stadium ban for fans, I think just across the board, I think that would help to stamp it out, rather than going like, oh, it was 3 fans, so we'll close that bit of the ground because nobody else around the ground was even thinking that sort of thing. You don't know that, do you? So I think it's something standard that could be implemented by every league around the world. I think that would help. Yeah, because we've seen it more in the Premier League with regards to homophobic chanting. You know, a famous chant that's been levelled at Chelsea for years. That's starting to be cracked down with threat of individual stadium bans and stuff like that. And you hear those chants a lot less, but you still hear them. And it's all a work in progress, obviously. It's a different issue, but if like you said, they've got to have it down in writing saying, if this happens, this will happen. Doesn't matter who you are, this will happen. But I don't know. I've got no faith in any of the governing bodies of world football, really. So I'll be hopeful it happens, but also surprised if it happens. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. So there we go. We've come to the end of the first ever Cultaholic Football. So, oh my God! I got right at the end of the video and I've just said the wrong thing. The first ever Hold and Give Football podcast. How do you think it went? I think it went all right for a first go around. Yeah, it went all right. Yeah. Like we said, this is a pilot, so hopefully get a couple of things ironed out. I'll sort my mic levels better next time. Both my cats are asleep near me. Luckily, they haven't caused a ruckus, so I'll make sure they're out of the way. I'll try and get into the wonderful city of Newcastle for a few whenever I can. But yeah, I think okay. I'm not going to say we were crap, even if we were, but we're grand. Me and you, we're the seasoned pros. Of course we are. Show business. What do you call yourself? The hardest working man in show business? That's what he says in the office back in the day. But are they like Wayne the dog at Arsenal? Those cats down there. They do put me in a good mood, apart from if they come near me and start licking their genitals very loudly, which they are wont to do, usually when I'm watching a film. I mean, you want to do that alone, don't you? Know, with cats doing the same thing as well around you. Yeah, of course. I'm just like, don't look at me. Don't make eye contact. You'll ruin the mood. But But no, I love my cats. I know you're more of a dog man, and animals are just nice, aren't they?
They are
good
nice.
lads.
All of them are, even the ugly ones. Anyway, so yeah, let us know in the comments down below anything you liked about the podcast, anything you hated about the podcast. Let me know if you'd be interested in the mailbag segment, which I might as well put it out there. ross@holdandgive.com is the address if you want to send in a mailbag question. And if we get some, we'll add it to the podcast next week. But it's been a nice tight hour of content this week, just a little bit over, so a nice length.
I mean, I'm not even going to go there, but a little bit of how the sausage is made, talking about a nice length. We only really agreed on the format yesterday and the content about an hour before we went live. We were just like, right, let's look at this, and this. But considering we're not flying by the seat of our pants, but I think we've done all right.
We've done all right. So there you go.
Yeah.
That is the first ever Hold and Give football podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @HoldGive. Follow Jack Atkins at his thing there. Look at that. I've made a fancy thing. Well, Owen made it. Thank you, Owen. He made a fancy thing. I'm not going to take credit for it. Follow me on Instagram @RossOnWrestling. And then we'll see you next week. We'll do some more things. The thing I will.